I was rejected from the school play for not fitting the look, so I wrote my own, sold out every show, and got a Netflix offer. I still remember the audition like it happened yesterday. It was junior year, spring semester, and the school was buzzing because the drama department announced that year's big play. It wasn't just any school play, it was Romeo and Juliet. People took it seriously. Drama kids called it their moment. Seniors used it to build their portfolios, and even people outside the drama circle wanted in just for the clout. I wasn't in drama club, but I loved theater. Always have. I memorized scenes for fun. I used to stay up watching behind-the-scenes interviews with playwrights instead of Netflix. I never auditioned for anything before, but this time, I was ready. I read every scene Juliet had. I studied different interpretations. I even practiced with my English teacher during lunch. I prepared for this like it was an exam. Audition day came. I wasn't nervous. I was locked in. When I got called up, the room had 5 people, the drama teacher, 2 assistant directors, and 2 senior students. I took a breath, blocked out everything else, and started the monologue. I gave it everything. Projection, pacing, emotion, even movement. When I finished, it was quiet for a second. The teacher looked at me, gave a nod, and said, "Thank you." That was it. I walked out, heart pounding, but honestly, I thought I had it. I thought, for once, my work was going to be enough. The cast list went up 2 days later. I checked it during lunch. Scrolled down slowly. My name wasn't there. Not as Juliet. Not as understudy. Not even in the ensemble. I double-checked, thinking maybe it was a typo. Nothing. I stood there staring at the list while people walked past me, whispering. Some gave me those awkward pity looks. A friend came over and said, "That's messed up. You crushed that audition." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and walked to the theater room. I waited until the teacher was alone and then asked, calmly, if he could give me feedback on my audition. He didn't hesitate. He said, "You were great. Really. But we had to go with someone who fit the look." I paused. The look. I asked. He nodded and said, "Yeah, Juliet needs to look believable." That's when it hit me. He didn't mean acting. He didn't mean voice. He meant appearance. I wasn't what Juliet was supposed to look like in his mind. Maybe it was my height, or my body, or my skin, or all 3. I don't know. He didn't say. He just stood there like the conversation was over. I left without saying another word. I didn't cry. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anyone what he said. I went home, sat in my room, and stared at the ceiling for an hour. That night, I made a decision. If they thought I didn't fit the look, then fine. I'd make something that didn't need their permission. I didn't know what yet, but I knew I was done waiting to be cast. I was done hoping people saw potential in me. I was going to write something myself. Direct it. Produce it. Put it on a stage, even if that stage was just the school gym. I had no experience writing plays, no budget, no equipment, no theater access, and no crew. All I had was this frustration sitting in my chest like a brick. But sometimes, that's enough. The next day, I checked out every scriptwriting book in the school library. I stayed up until 2 a.m. reading sample scripts and scene structures. I started writing ideas in my math notebook. A story began forming. It wasn't about Juliet. It was about someone who gets told they're not enough and refuses to disappear. Someone who builds something from scratch when nobody believes in them. It was raw, a little angry, but it was mine. And while the school play prepared for opening night, I was writing in secret, crafting a story that was never meant to impress teachers or drama kids. I was writing for the kids who'd never been picked. The ones who got told to wait their turn. The ones who didn't fit the look. I didn't know how far it would go, or if anyone would show up, or if I'd embarrass myself. I just knew one thing. I wasn't going to let someone else decide if I belonged on a stage again. I didn't know how to write a play. I wasn't trained. I didn't grow up in acting camps or take workshops. But I knew how to tell stories. I knew how to write how things felt. I started by sketching a basic plot. A girl gets rejected for a school play for not looking the part, so she writes her own. It sounds meta, but it wasn't self-pity. It was about building something instead of just reacting. I wanted the character to be funny, sharp, confident, everything I felt underneath, but was afraid to show out loud. I outlined the story into 3 acts. The first act, rejection and motivation. The second, building a team. The third, performance and impact. I wanted people to see what it looked like to turn rejection into something better. Not as revenge. Just as proof. I called the play off book. It was a joke at first, meaning not following the script. But it stuck. I wrote it in 2.5 weeks. Every night, after homework, after chores, when the house was quiet, I'd be at my desk typing until my eyes hurt. I wasn't just writing lines, I was writing moments. I imagined how the audience would react. Where they'd laugh. Where they'd go silent. Where they'd maybe cry. When I finished the first draft, I felt something I hadn't felt since that failed audition, Control. This time, I wasn't auditioning for a part. I was creating the stage. Now I needed people. I printed out the script on my school printer during lunch. I started asking people quietly, one by one. Not just actors. Anyone who seemed curious. People who weren't usually asked. A girl from art class who always doodled in the margins. A quiet guy from speech club. A freshman who beatboxed during breaks. I told them, this isn't a typical play. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for people who want to build something from scratch. We didn't have the school theater. I asked the principal if I could use the gym on a Saturday. She said no at first. Said it wasn't in the budget. I explained it was student-led, no cost, no interference with official productions. I'd bring my own folding chairs. I promised to clean up after. She finally said yes for one night only. That's all I needed. We started rehearsals in the back of the library. No microphones, no lights. Just our voices and cheap props from the dollar store. Someone's older brother brought a speaker for sound cues. Another friend offered to help with lighting, using a flashlight and colored paper. It was janky, homemade, and chaotic. But we were building something real. People who had never been on stage before were suddenly delivering lines like they'd been born to do it. I spent my weekends designing flyers. Bright colors, bold letters, the title off book. One night only across the top. I handed them out during lunch, slid them into lockers, left stacks in the front office. People started talking. Some laughed. Others said, "Wait, you're doing a whole play yourself?" I said, "Yeah, you should come." The night of the show came fast. We only had about 60 chairs. I thought maybe 40 people would show up. I was wrong. By 6:30 p.m., the gym was packed. People stood along the walls. Some brought their own chairs. Teachers came. Students I'd never even spoken to came. Even some parents who just heard about something cool showed up. Right before the show started, one of the actors turned to me and asked, "What if we mess up?" I told him, "We already won. We made this happen. Everything else is just extra." The lights, aka phone flashlights taped to broomsticks, turned on. The music cue played. And then we started. Line after line. Scene after scene. The crowd laughed. They clapped. They leaned in. There was no awkward silence. There were no missed cues. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was alive. By the end, when the cast took a bow, everyone stood up. Cheering, clapping, recording. I stood off to the side, watching it all. This started as a rejection. A door slammed in my face. But instead of knocking again, I built another door. And people walked through it on stage, in the seats, and online. Because someone recorded it, and posted it, and tagged me. And by the time I got home, the video had 3,000 views. The next morning, it had 30,000. The video blew up faster than anything I'd ever been part of. It wasn't even high quality, just a vertical phone recording from the third row, shaky and a little grainy. But the moment it hit social media, something clicked. People shared it, commented on it, tagged their friends. There was something raw about it, something that felt real. The caption just said, "High school play created after she got rejected from the official one. This deserves to go viral." And it did. By noon, it had 50,000 views. By night, 200,000. People started messaging me on Instagram, TikTok, even my old email account. Strangers, parents, teenagers, college students in theater programs. They all said the same thing. "This is what we've been waiting to see." It was validation, but it wasn't just about me. It was like I cracked something open that everyone else had been too afraid to touch. I went back to school that Monday and people looked at me differently. Not in a celebrity way, just respect. The same classmates who'd walked right past my flyers were now asking when the next performance was. Teachers stopped me in the hallway and said things like, "That took guts," or "My daughter watched it 3 times. Even the janitor said, "That play was better than anything they've put on in the real theater." That one hit deep. So I went back to the principal, told her about the views, the feedback, the messages. I said, "I think we need more than one night." She looked at me like she was calculating risk, then finally said, 2 more nights. Friday and Saturday. Same rules. Clean up after. I didn't even blink. I texted the cast. We met up that afternoon in the cafeteria. We cleaned up the script, tightened some lines, reblocked a few scenes. Everyone was ready. This time, we weren't just performing. We were a team. People showed up early to help tape signs to the walls. Someone's cousin lent us a speaker that was actually decent. The art kids repainted our backdrops and gave us something that almost looked professional. And on show night, we didn't just fill the seats, we overflowed them. Students from other schools came. Parents who didn't even have kids in our district. Even a local college theater rep was in the crowd. We didn't advertise for that. Someone had just sent them the link. After the Saturday show, a girl walked up to me crying. She said, "I didn't even think people like me could be the main character in anything. Then I saw your play." I didn't know what to say, but I nodded and hugged her. That moment stuck with me more than the views. That weekend's video clips went even bigger. One clip hit 1 million views in 3 days. Then came a DM from a college student in New York. She ran a small theater blog and wanted to feature the story. I said yes, thinking it was just a side article. But the blog post exploded. It got shared to Medium, Reddit, then somehow ended up on BuzzFeed. The headline was simple, "Rejected from her school play." She wrote her own, and it went viral. Then the emails started rolling in. A reporter from the local newspaper. Then a radio station. Then a regional TV news outlet. It was surreal. They all wanted to hear about the same thing, why I did it. I didn't have a rehearsed answer. I just said the truth. I got rejected, and instead of begging for space, I made my own. Then I got an email I almost deleted. It was short, kind of vague. Said it was from a talent coordinator connected with a streaming development team and asked if I was open to a conversation. I thought it was fake. But I forwarded it to my older cousin who works in tech. She looked up the domain and said, This is real. 2 days later, I was on a video call with someone from Netflix's early-stage indie scouting program. I sat in my room, nervous, trying not to freak out. The guy on the other end said, "We've seen your story. Your script has heart. We're not promising anything, but we're interested in developing it if you're open to it." I just stared, then nodded, then said yes. Of course I'm open. It wasn't a movie deal or a big contract yet. It was a chance. A foot in a door I never knew existed, and it all started with someone telling me I didn't fit the part, that I wasn't what they were looking for. Now people were looking for me. The Netflix rep wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be some executive in a suit, corporate energy, all buzzwords and fake smiles. But no, her name was Talia. She wore a hoodie, leaned back in her chair, and spoke like someone who actually cared about stories, not just numbers. She started with this: "We don't usually approach high school creators, but your voice, it's different. It cuts through the noise." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't trying to cut through anything. I was just trying to be heard. She asked if I had a full script. I said yes. Then she asked if I had plans for expansion, if I ever saw Off Book as something bigger than a school play. I hadn't, not really. But in that moment, I said yes again. Because maybe it could be. Over the next week, I put everything else on hold. I skipped after-school hangouts, ignored social media, turned down podcast interviews. I spent every hour rewriting Off Book into something more, adding depth to the characters. More scenes, more arcs, more heart. Not just a play, but something cinematic. I imagined it as a limited series, 6 episodes, each focusing on one character's story around the original performance. I didn't tell anyone at school, not even my cast. I didn't want to jinx it. When I sent the revised script to Talia, I waited 3 days in silence. Then came the email, "Let's talk." On the call, she said it plainly: "We want to option this for development. It's not a green light, but we'll pay you for the rights and work with you on building it out. You'll be a creator on the project. You keep your voice in it." I sat there frozen. I wasn't even 18 yet. I had to forward everything to my mom. She didn't even understand what optioning meant at first. But when she saw the contract and read the terms, she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not just her daughter, but someone who made something impossible happen. The day after the deal, the local news ran another story. Then another school in our district messaged me asking if they could stage Off Book. I gave them permission and sent them the script. Within 2 weeks, 3 schools were performing it. One of them sent me footage. Their Juliet looked nothing like the girl in our version, and that was the point. Off Book was becoming what it was meant to be, a story for anyone who'd been told no for the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, my own school tried to play catch-up. The drama teacher who rejected me suddenly invited me to guest speak at their cast meeting. I declined. Politely. But no thank you. I didn't need validation from someone who only looked up when the world forced him to. After the pitch, things slowed down. No big announcements. No press release. Just waiting. I was still going to class, doing homework, standing in the lunch line like nothing had changed. But everything had. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it might be the message. The one that would tell me if this little school play was really going to become a Netflix series. Weeks passed. Then a month. And I started to convince myself maybe it wouldn't happen. Maybe the pitch wasn't enough. Then one Friday afternoon, I got a call. Talia again. No video this time, just her voice. She said, "They're in. They want to develop it officially. You're getting a writing team. You'll be a credited co-creator. We're greenlit for a pilot episode. Congratulations." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat on my bed and whispered, "Okay?" Because when you've been told no for so long, learning how to process a yes takes time. My family celebrated that night with takeout. Nothing fancy. Just burgers and fries in the living room. My mom lit a candle anyway. She said, "Every time someone tells you no, remember you made something they couldn't ignore." I saved that line. A few weeks later, contracts were finalized. I met with producers, real screenwriters, people who'd worked on shows I'd grown up watching. But they didn't treat me like a kid. They asked questions. They took notes. They let me lead. I was still learning, but they made space for that. I wasn't just the girl from the viral video anymore. I was the storyteller. School was weird after that. People were nice, but a little too careful around me. Like they didn't know how to talk to someone who had a deal with Netflix. But my core people? They stayed the same. We still met in the back of the library. Still read new lines out loud. Still brainstormed new stories. We were building our next show before the first one even aired. I didn't go to prom. Not because I didn't have a date, but because the pilot table read was scheduled for the same weekend. Sitting in a studio conference room with real actors reading my words out loud was more than enough. One of them turned to me and said, "The scene? It hits. It's exactly how it felt being 15 and invisible." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just my story anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been overlooked. Months later, the pilot dropped. It wasn't a massive marketing campaign. No billboards. Just a quiet release under new and noteworthy. But the response? Immediate. People binge-watched it. Tagged their friends. Made fan edits. Quoted lines. And just like that, Off Book wasn't a play anymore. It was a series. A real one. Streaming worldwide. The night it hit the trending page, I got another message from my old school. Not from the drama teacher this time, but from a sophomore girl. She wrote, "I didn't make the cast list either. So I started writing my own thing. Thank you for making that okay. I replied, "It's more than okay. It's how it starts." We got renewed for a full season. I got flown out for interviews, panels, set visits. But I never stopped writing in my room, never stopped sketching ideas in the margins of my notebooks. Because once you know your voice matters, you don't let anyone take that away. I still have the original script, the one I printed during lunch on the school printer. It's in a folder with coffee stains and ink smudges. It's messy and raw and completely mine. That script didn't just change my life. It built a door where there wasn't one. And now, other people are walking through it too.